Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to Gadgets with Alan. My name is Alan Chan. A couple of my friends has asked me on technique on how to do a Holy Grail time lapse. If you're asking what it is, basically it's a time lapse on the transition of sunrise or sunset. It's an extremely tedious procedure and you need a lot of patience sitting on the same spot in front of the camera for at least 2 hours doing minor adjustment to the exposure every few minutes. So my friends are asking me, is there an easier way or better still automatic settings on the camera to do it for you? And doing my research, I found a method to do it automatically on the camera from London viewpoints. So I'm going to push it one step ahead and use the Nikon Z6ii movie time-lapse mode to produce a time-lapse right out of the camera. I'm sure taking photo in stage and merge them together will produce the best result. You can do bracketing, you can shoot in RAW. I personally am not trying to win any award, so I would be hesitant to spend all the time to go through hundreds or even thousands of photos, merging them into a time-lapse. I just want to capture it for myself and good enough to maybe show them on social media. So with this method from London viewpoints, I'm going to push it one step ahead, like I said, producing it straight out of the Nikon Z6ii time-lapse video mode. The effort saved versus the quality. That is really what I want to find out. Whether is it good enough, at least for myself or social media? To prepare the settings for the shoot, I would first go into program mode. Now imagine the light is the sun is at its 100% right now, so imagine that it's going down a sunset, and because I am aiming at the sun, I will want my aperture to be as small as possible. And with the back dial, I dialed it to f16. This is the smallest aperture for the Z20 mm1.8, and the shutter speed has automatically been compensated to 250th of a second. Now the more important point is the ISO settings. It's under the photo shooting menu. Look for ISO sensitivity settings. If you have not turned it on, it should be in the off state. One important point to remember is you should only turn on the auto sensitivity after you have set your ISO sensitivity to the lowest that you want it to be. Meaning that if you set to 100 and you turn it on, it can go down to as low as 100. But if let's say you set it to 800 before you turn it on, 800 will be the lowest ISO value that it can go down to. So be very mindful of this. In this case, I want lowest to be 100, so I set it to 100 before I turn on the auto ISO. This is the maximum you want it to go, and this is the minimum shutter speed you want the shutter to go down to before the ISO starts increasing. Meaning that when the shutter speed hit as slow as 8 seconds, only then the ISO will start to increase. If the shutter speed is anything faster than 8 seconds, it will not adjust ISO, it will stay at the lowest, in this case 100. And what should this shutter speed be is also up to your settings. I set an 8 seconds because I choose a 10 second of interval, and I don't want it to overrun, because if I set both at 10 seconds and if there's any delay from the sensor storing into the card, it could overrun at 10 seconds. The next shot might be delayed, so I give it a 2-second buffer, so you will always fire every 10 seconds without fail. This is set for a sunset. My smallest aperture and the lowest ISO. Let's decrease the light intensity simulating the sunset, and as it goes down, observe the shutter speed. That is the first thing that it will adjust. And at one point, the aperture will start to open up. And the ISO starts to kick in to 2000 because the shutter speed has hit a minimum of 8 seconds and it's not allowed to go any lower. That's why it bumped up the ISO. So now the reverse for sunrise. So I will set my aperture to its widest, which is what it is now because it's so dark. And as I increase, the ISO go down to 100 when the shutter speed is shorter than 8 seconds. And the aperture is also closing down. So this is the concept behind using the P mode with the emphasis on the auto ISO. So to get things going, press the menu button, shooting menu right near the bottom of menu list, the time-lapse movie item, and you go into the time-lapse movie settings. Very first settings in the interval, which determine the amount of time between each exposure. Shooting time is how long a time do you want the camera to keep doing the interval shots. In this case, I set the interval to 10 seconds between each exposure and a shooting time of 3 hours. The result of the final footage, the length would be at the bottom left in blue. In this case, with these two settings of 10-second interval and 3-hour shooting time, you will produce a 31.2 footage. So if I want to increase or decrease the footage length, I could either shorten the time between each exposure, meaning you end up with more exposure within the same amount of shooting time, and so you got a longer footage. And if I increase the time between the interval, I will have less exposure, then I will have a shorter footage at the end. Other way to increase or decrease the footage would be the shooting time. I usually set the exposure smoothing to on, silent photography to on. I choose FX and I choose the resolution of the movie to a 4K 30 frame. Interval priority off, focus before each shot is off. I usually do manual focus, and for destination is where you want to store the final video. Because I'm using a Z6ii, I got 2 slots of memory, and once you are done with all the settings, just press start and it will start to run time that you have set here. If you want to interrupt it for any reason, you can just press OK again to interrupt, but you will still get a movie, a shorter one, up to where you have interrupted. That means if you interrupt it at 1 hour point, you will still get 1/3 of a movie with respect to the 3 hours that I have set here. And for me, I have set the option to one of the I button, the I quick menu. At the bottom right, time-lapse movie highlighted in yellow. So what I can do is I just come in here without having to dive into the menu again. So that's pretty handy. I'm going to first show you the unedited footage out of the camera for these 2 time-lapse. And next I will show you what it will become with a little bit of color grading to the original footage. I'm actually very impressed and happy with the unedited footage that came right out of the camera, and with a little bit of color grading, it really brings out the sharpness and the contrast of the video, and it did save me a lot of effort and time in comparison. It's definitely good enough for me to show on my social media. And with this technique, all I need to do is just to leave it somewhere safe, and run it. I don't even have to be there to do changes every few minutes. So what do you think of this technique? Is it good enough for you? I would like to hear your view in the comment section below. Do you think that the footage from this time-lapse video mode out of the camera is good enough for you, considering how much time and effort it would save you? So if you enjoyed this video today or learned something from it, please do like and share. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel, click on the bell button, and I'll see you again in the next one. Bye!